Hello and welcome to Monkey Channel with me, the Jonin Monkey, reviewing whatever comes to my head, because hay fever has driven me indoors. And insects. Lots and lots of insects. Anyway, who here has heard of the website Rooster Teeth? Rooster Teeth is a website slash YouTube channel that generates a lot of content. Stuff like Red vs. Blue, Rage Quit, and other shows I admittedly haven't watched. And one such show they've been advertising a lot recently is RWBY. Or is it supposed to be pronounced RWBY? I really hate smart-ass titles like that, but never mind. I remember stumbling across the first trailer purely by chance, and honestly, I was kind of intrigued. I mean, I wouldn't say I was completely sold by the concept, since the series is made by Monty, who is a great animator and creates great fight sequences. But he's always had this thing where he goes so overboard that all tension is lost. Like, it's really hard to wonder who the hell is going to win this fight when the main character of the piece has basically been punching bad guys left, right and centre and is pulling out more and more ridiculous power-ups. And whilst the first trailer was really well animated and had a really unique visual style, it was one character completely and utterly decimating an army of shadow wolves. So I was curious but cautious. But I slowly came round to the idea as more and more trailers were released. The fights were more even, the characters started to express themselves, and the soundtracks were awesome. So I eagerly awaited for the first full episode of this series, and a few years ago, we finally saw it. Which is an overly long way of saying today I'm going to be reviewing RWBY Episode 1. Let's start with the premise. Mankind was born into an incredibly hospitable world where monsters known as Grimm attack them from every turn. However, they were able to harness a special type of magical energy known as dust, named so because apparently mankind was born from dust and that's supposed to be symbolic and oh, who cares. Basically they have magic, and because of that they're able to build cities which are the beacons of civilization and hope. But of course there are still villains around and the monsters are still outside those gates, so we have people who are specially trained to combat these threats, known as huntsmen or huntresses, depending on the gender obviously. Our hero, Ruby Rose, is a huntress in training, and episode 1 mainly focuses on introducing her to the audience and showing us how she evolves to the next level by getting to the Academy of Beacon. Basically the last step before anyone can become an official huntress. As with the trailers, both the visual style and the animation were amazing. Whilst there's one semi-cool fight sequence at the start, it doesn't end up being all mindless action, which was my biggest fear. In fact, the entire second half of the episode is mostly focused on character bits, which is good. And the characters end up being really enjoyable and a lot of fun. We only see two of the main characters that were showed off in the trailer. RWBY, obviously, and Yang. And what's actually kind of funny is that the trailers show RWBY as kind of being a silent brooding figure, since we see her standing in front of a grave in the first trailer, and we kind of see it again in the, I guess you could call it anime-style opening that was showed off at the end of the episode, and I guess it will be at the beginning of every other episode, I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, point is, she looks like this silent, brooding, tragic character, and then in this episode, she's what TV tropes likes to call badass adorable. She has this very energetic and childlike demeanor, which it sounds like something which could be incredibly annoying, but it ends up being really cute and almost endearing, especially since it's established that she really admires huntresses and wants to be one herself, but she kind of does it to the point where she often ends up exploding into kind of what I can only describe as childish squealing. Oh my god, they're so incredible, they're exciting, they're like super cool and why? It's not what I was expecting, but I enjoyed it nevertheless, and actually I think you could say that about the first episode as a whole, especially given from the trailers. It's not 100% what you'd expect, but it is still a really enjoyable ride. I mean, the episode does enough to establish the basics, like how the world works, who the main character is, what their purpose is, and we even have a brief establishment of a villain. I wouldn't say it's perfect. I mean, it hasn't really established any deep character development or anything like that. I mean, maybe that will change as the series goes down the line, but based on the first episode, it's just harmless fun. Also, whilst Monty animation is really great, he does take shortcuts every now and again. I have a BA degree in animation arts, so I do know full well that you have to take shortcuts like this sometimes, to the point where my lecturer gave me this valuable quote I always use in times like this: it's not cheating, it's time saving. The only problem is the shortcuts end up being really obvious, like background characters just being silhouettes. you can kind of get away with it because, again, stylistic choice, etc. But the news reporter we see in the first episode is just inexcusable. She has the same amount of animation as a video game mugshot. She just stands there with lip flaps that don't even try to match the dialogue. It's just... I mean, taking shortcuts is one thing, but this is like taking a shortcut whilst carrying a megaphone plugged into an amp and yelling at the top of your voice, "Hey, I'm taking shortcuts!" But overall, these are minor nitpicks, and the episode did what it set out to do. Introduce the premise and make the audience want to come back. So if you have 15 minutes to kill, I would encourage you to watch the episode. There's a link below in the description. And I'll say I'm really looking forward to episode 2. I don't know if I'm going to review each episode one by one like I did with Doctor Who, but that depends on whether A, the series holds my interest, and B, if you guys want me to keep reviewing this series. But that's something I'll have to worry about in the future. But now this is the end of the review, and RWBY episode 1 gets a thumbs up from me. I've been the Jonin Monkey, and until next time, cheerio!